All right, hello and welcome to the second episode that has a certain sound. My name is Sunday Guy. The record that I'm going to be talking to you guys about today is a record by a cat named Townes Van Zandt. Super incredible musician, songwriter, singer-songwriter. And it's his self-titled record. It's called Townes Van Zandt. And it's a really incredible record. I love the artwork on it. It's a picture, but it almost looks like an oil painting or something. That's the way that I always thought of it. But yeah, this is the record, Townes Van Zandt, self-titled record, came out in 1969. He had a few other records that came out before it. I think personally that this record is more what he was going for, more along the lines of what he wanted to do, because the records before they were produced more like country records, and this record doesn't sound like a country record. This to me sounds like what I really like to hear out of a folk record. It's very sparse. There's not a bunch of like the super country guitar playing and stuff. It's accented with a lot of country stuff to a certain extent. I wouldn't even say a lot, to be honest. It's not. So the first thing that I want to say is this record is very atmospheric. For me, it feels like as if you're sitting in that cabin with this guy, and he's just telling you stories. It feels so personal. It feels so intimate. It's just somebody creating these images in your head through this music and these songs. And a lot of the songs, the way that they develop, it's like they start off a little more sparse, and then they grow into these things that are full of textures that create an environment around you. The album cover is incredible because I think it really captures like the feeling that comes through on this record. It's old, it's almost like ancient, in the sense that it's like the way that it's told, it feels like it's a tradition that's just been carried through generation and just storytelling and creation, and it's very incredible. Yeah, like the record feels like there's somebody telling you these stories. The way that they develop, it's like you get these images in your head, and then as the songs develop, it's like you don't even realize that they're amping up and creating even more vivid images. It's like it gives you the chance to kind of like start feeling it, and then it starts giving you everything, and it starts painting the full picture, and then it becomes really vivid, by the end of the song. And all the tracks on this record are like that. All of them are like that. I mean, this is another record that there's no, to me, in my opinion, there's no songs to skip on this one. It's like you get swept away in what feels like the memories of another person. It's like you're being swept away in these environments and these memories that are his, that he's giving you, and you're seeing through his eyes. It's incredible. There's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of longing on this record. It's very intense, and there's also a sense of comfort in it too, but it's a lot of longing. It's a lot of loneliness, and the way that the singing is on this record, and this is something that is kind of just in Townes' style of singing. He has this way of singing where it's like it's almost like he's talking, but then the talks kind of drag into these like moans where it's like it's just, there's a lot of feeling and a lot of emotion in them, and the way that it goes from almost just a talk into this moan, this cry, it almost feels like it's just an emphasis on the feeling that he's trying to give through what he's saying, and not so much that he's singing. But he's definitely singing. It's so smooth, the transition from like this speaking tone into this moan, and it becomes very emotional. I mean, at least to me, that's what I hear. I hear a lot of emotion coming through the vocals. There's a few tracks that are just guitar and singing. I think there's a couple just off the top of my head. The ones that pop into my mind: Colorado Girl is just guitar and singing, and None But the Rain. None But the Rain isn't even just singing. Or guitar and singing. It just really feels like it. I think there's another track or two on there that might just be guitar and singing, and that's the part that I really like about the folk aspect of the record. Like I like folk music when it's just an instrument, and the instrument almost creates like a background for the story to sit in. And Townes is really, really good at doing that with his guitar playing. His guitar playing feels like the air. It just feels like you're in a certain place and you're just feeling the air around you, like the atmospheric pressure or something. And yeah, it comes off really, really good in this record. And another thing I really like about this record, and that kind of like folk music vibe that comes through, the extra instrumentation on it comes through very much supporting that. Like there's not all the tracks have drums on them, like a drum kit. There's actually a lot of tracks on here that just have conga, and I think that's incredible. Conga is really, especially in Latin music, it's like it just blends into the air in the back, and on this record it does that too. And the percussion really does become, it's like another air texture along with the guitar, and it accentuates it very, very, very well. And there's a couple tracks on here, Lungs and Waiting Around to Die, that are really, really intense songs. It's a really intense look through somebody else's eyes, and seeing the world I can't say in a scary way, because it's not in a scary way, but it's just in a very, it's sad. It's in a sad way, Lungs is almost like this. The way that when I heard it, the way that I felt about it was, it's almost like this, like psychedelic poetry that comes through, and the music behind it is familiar enough where it feels like you're in the world, but you're like seeing the world through this intense. It's like, it's trippy, man. Like it's like this trippy perspective of the world that's like almost scary. It's a little bit aggressive. There's like a rebelliousnness to it where it's almost like the world can be ugly, but it's rebellious in the sense like, you're still dealing with it, and it's just somebody's perspective on how they're dealing with it. And it's really, really interesting. It's an incredible song. I mean, the lyrics are super intense. It drives. It's just all accented really, really well with the music, Almost like it's a scary world, and you're seeing this exaggerated version. Exaggerated because it's not really, the world is not, it's not so scary, but it's like an exaggerated perspective of the world. Almost feels like it's through like a child's eyes, and I think that's kind of what makes it a little bit, I say psychedelic. You listen to it and you hear it in context, and I think you'll understand what I'm trying to say. It's hard to describe the emotion and the feeling that comes through it. There's so much imagery that he's using that it's like the words are creating these feelings, and it's not necessarily that you're really listening to exactly what the words are saying. It's like you're processing the words, and you're processing these phrases, and they're becoming like just otherworldly perspectives. And I think it is kind of a good way to say it, almost through a child's eyes, because children have this way of seeing the world, and not actually seeing exactly what's in front of them, but seeing things from their perspective, which is, really, really interesting. And yeah, like the phases, the record kind of goes through our phases of longing, phases of adventure, and just like a determination to do things, and despair. There's some despair on the record too, especially with the more intense songs, especially with Waiting Around to Die. I mean, that's a song of despair for sure. The whole thing feels very personal. It doesn't feel like anybody's saying these things just to say them. It feels like they're coming from somewhere. And the emotions are very real, very human emotions that are coming through with it. That's a great way to make a folk record feel, because this is kind of described as like folk rock or like country rock, and I don't think those are good ways to describe it. I think it's very much folk, and it's folk with these added textures that give it this environment that is in the style in a certain way of country, maybe. Definitely in the style of country to a certain extent, but it's not a country record. So you have these textures that are going on there that feel like they're from another genre, but this is very much a folk record. I mean, this is a guy telling stories, and you're sitting there being transported into these stories, you know, through every song. The mix on this record is great. I think the guitars, the way that they're recorded, to me, they just sound like pieces of wood with strings on them. You know, they sound really, really, like, they sound ancient in a way. It sounds like it's like an old instrument that's being played. It sounds like it's an old form of storytelling that you're getting this medium of information through. And I like the bass. The bass acts as like low end texture, and it fills up the space really, really well. The bass I think might be, you know, it's the bass is country in the sense that it's accenting the chords that Townes is playing and singing these songs with. It's just accenting them really, really, really well. Townes' style of guitar playing is a lot of the times it's finger picked, or he'll be picking out bass notes, and as he's picking out the bass notes, he's kind of just lightly strumming and just kind of leaving these like textures in between the bass notes, but the emphasis is really on the bass notes on the guitar that he's playing. And the bass does a really good job of just filling in that low end and accenting the chords and really making the chords come to life. So even though the guitar feels almost like it's atmospheric, it's very airy, it's very in the back, and it's just creating these textures that you're kind of sitting in, and then the bass just fills it in and just makes it come to life. Even though the guitar is sitting way in the back, the bass is pushing it forward even more, and it's giving this low end thump that just it feels good, you know. And then the drums act a lot like they're very airy too, you know. The drums aren't super, super loud in the mix, and they sit very much in the back, and they kind of sit back there with the guitar, and they're accenting the guitar as well. And they're accenting, I feel like, the rhythm of the guitar, you know. The finger playing is very rhythmic, you know. It's like you have bass line that's going through, and then you have these finger picked melodies that are going through, and it's the bass is doing a good job accenting the chord, and then the drums are doing a really good job accenting the rhythms of the guitar. And that's why I don't think that this record is really like a country record in the same sense that a lot of people, you know, kind of think of certain folk music when it's got these textures added to it. You know, I think a lot of people, when they think of folk music, they think it's either just one or two instruments, and those are the instruments that are being played, and then that's pretty much it. They'll think of it as country, and then there's all these instruments added on top of it to make it sound fuller, and then it's not so much a folk record anymore. And I think that there's kind of a little bit of confusion with that. They'll end up using a lot of the same progressions, a lot of the same chords on the guitar. The folk guitar, to me, feels more like it's this background texture, and it's creating kind of like hills and streams for you to kind of go through, and all the instruments are accenting that. While with like a country record, I think it's a lot, you know, it's all the instruments kind of playing the separate parts to create these textures, you know. But these are really, a lot of the stuff that's going on in this record is just accenting what Townes was already doing with the song that he made the story with on the guitar. And like I said, there's a lot of conga on this, and I really, really like conga music or conga drums on folk music. I think it's one of the best drums that you can put, you know, just like percussion drums in general. I think congas are incredible just as instrumentation, that it's like, because the way that congas are played a lot of the times, especially in Latin music, I mean, I'm more familiar with Cuban music, a lot of salsa and stuff. It's a lot of like ghost notes, and it just kind of fits in the rhythm, and then you have these accents. It's really just filling in space in the back, and then what you're really hearing on the congas is the accenting of the melody, you know. And it's great, you know. I think it's great for something that's supposed to be, I think folk music should be a little bit more sparse, and it should feel more like just walking outside and listening to the wind in the trees and hearing birds. And it's like, you know, it's all these things, and they're small, but they paint this big picture. And if you really listen to everything, it's like it comes to life. It creates an ecosystem, you know. And that's what I really like about folk music. I love folk music, and when it's done right, it creates an ecosystem, and there's all these parts that are alive, and it's beautiful. And also, I love the ending of this record. It's just a song that's like, it's a song, I think he wrote it as an ending, you know. It's None But the Rain, and it closes it off. It's a farewell song, you know. It's a farewell song to a lover. It's romantic. It's beautiful. And it's very sparse, and it starts off, and there's like a little flute on it that just, it makes you feel like you're in the forest or something. It's crazy. And I just think it was a really, really appropriate way to end the album. And the way that the album starts is a song called For the Sake of the Song, and that's also a romantic song. I think it's a great way to start the album, too. It starts off very sparse, it ends very sparse. There's like a flute thing going on with both of the songs. For the Sake of the Song, it builds up, and by the end of it, there's this, it's just a symphony of sounds, and they're all doing their own thing, and there's even like this drum that it's like, maybe it's like the low drum from a tabla set. It goes whoop, whoop. And it's so good. It's super, super good. And None But the Rain it feels a lot more sparse. And by the end of it, it goes up and then it kind of comes back down. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful ending to the album. And it's a beautiful beginning to the album. I love the cycle of it. I think that the choice of the songs, the way that it flows through is really, really great. And there's a feeling that I got of the beginning of the record feels like that first song. It's a romantic song, but it's not like oh, I love you, this and that. It's almost like this is a person I cared about, and this is almost like a way of like I'm trying to understand them. It's like a song of trying to understand. And even the end song, None But the Rain, there's a certain, I think, attempt at understanding with that one too. It's kind of like it's an acceptance of an ending, and through acceptance, there has to be understanding, because we as humans, we don't accept the things that we don't understand. It's like we're made to question things. We should be questioning everything. We shouldn't just take anything for how it's given to us. It's like, we should be thinking about these things. And so there's a lot of trying to understand on this record, and I really like that emotion, that feeling comes through. At least for me, I hear it in there. The record feels like it was made by an observer, just somebody that's what they're doing, that's what they're, I don't know, I guess that's what their calling is, I mean, I think music and musicians in general tend to be observers, because you have to be looking at all these things. Music isn't created. It's not just created out of nothing. Music is an attempt to understand things. It's an attempt to create things that are already there, to bring you to certain places. And so it's not a case of just I'm gonna make something that's never been made before. It's I'm gonna take you somewhere that you've maybe never been before. But it's real and it exists, Part of the imagination, it exists. It exists from something, it's influenced by something. It's brought to life by something else that maybe you've seen, maybe you've heard, maybe you've felt, smelled, whatever. The senses are incredible, and it's just it's a creation through the senses, which is our way of understanding the things around us, the way our brain interprets the things around us, which is very, very interesting. Yeah, and just to kind of give, one song on here, just to kind of talk about it and say, the place that it transports me to specifically, like Colorado Girl. When I listen to that song, I almost feel like I'm sitting at the edge of my bed. It's not my bed. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's Town's bed, maybe it's something, it's like seeing through that person's eyes, seeing through Town's eyes. It feels like I'm sitting on my bedstand, or on my bedside, and I'm just like staring at a lamp, and I'm just reminiscing, I'm just thinking about these things right before I go to sleep, thinking about this person. And eventually I turn the light off, and I lay in bed, and I'm still not sleeping. I'm looking up at the ceiling, and the moon is shining through the window, and the ceiling is illuminated, and I'm just looking up at the ceiling, and it's almost like my mind is going to this person, wherever this person is. And it's beautiful. It's incredible that something could even create an atmosphere like that. Towns is one of my favorite musicians, just musicians in general. I feel like I learned a lot from his songwriting. There's a few songs on here that I learned how to play, how to finger pick. I learned how to finger pick a lot from this record, from this, and from some Bob Dylan too. Is what I cut my teeth on, learning finger picking, learning that kind of, I guess, folk style. Learning the sparsity of it, and learning to create these kind of like pillows to lay on with the rest of the song as a story, And this record specifically is a record I've also listened to this one a lot, and just really tried to absorb it, and it's it's a special record. It's something that you can tell somebody really put themselves into. And yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out for sure. I'm not gonna be doing the rating thing on a lot of these records. This is a record I'd say it's good all the way through. From beginning to end, it's incredible. And it's one worth listening to. I do though, if you like more heavy music, something that's a little more intense, like a story that's just kind of like feels like it's stabbing you. You're like, oh man, this is rough. A place you can't go all the time. Waiting Around to Die is great. It's really, really, really moody. It's really heavy. And then Lungs, like I said, is really intense, really moody, really heavy. If that's the type of music that you like, I would check those songs out. If you don't know exactly what to start with on the record, if you're looking for if you like more romantic songs, definitely check out For the Sake of the Song, Colorado Girl, I'll Be Here in the Morning, and None But the Rain. Those are beautiful, beautiful love stories. And it's not just, oh, I miss my girl, this and that. That to me it gets boring. You can only hear that so much. These are like real like stories. It feels like it's somebody telling you their specific interpretation of this romantic situation that they're in, and they're super, super great. So if you like more romantic stuff, I definitely check those songs out. And then songs that feel more like stories, a little bit more comforting, things that you can just listen to and let your imagination kind of race through, and they're a little bit easier to listen to, not so heavy. The song Columbine, really, really good. No relation to the school incident. That was in the 90s. This record came out in 69. Don't Take It So Bad is another really, really great song. I think it's a very comforting song. It's another one of acceptance, of understanding, which I really, really like. Fare Thee Well, Miss Carousel. It's another really, really interesting imagery with the lyrics on it. I kind of want to call it more poetry. But he writes them as songs, and they're more lyrics, but it's the imagery, and it feels more poetic. And it feels more like a story. It's really, really interesting. And then Quicksilver Daydreams is another one that's really, really good. That kind of feels in the same vein as the last one. Really, really interesting. Again, another story. And not so heavy. But still very, very beautiful and very, very interesting to listen to. All in all, the record is great. All the way through. I recommend, if you can, just listen to the whole thing. But definitely check out the songs depending on what your preference is on music, because this song has this record has a lot of emotions on it, and there's a lot of different things that you can get absorbed into. I really like the way that Town sees things, so for me the record is great all the way through, even though it's got the different emotions. I don't get super attached to like a certain emotion when I listen to music. I like listening to music that has a lot of different things going on in it. But this record stays in the same vein the entire way through, it feels like a certain point in time for him, that he was probably going through these different things, and it's, a period of whatever, maybe half a year, maybe a year, I don't know, I'm guessing on this, but it feels like it's just kind of like a certain, almost like a playthrough of different parts of his life. They feel like memories when he writes them. I think that's what makes him such a great songwriter, is that he's telling you these things like they're stories, like they're memories. It's not just a song. They're deep. There's a lot going on in them. Again, this is the record, Townes Van Zandt's self-titled record. I think it's his third record that he did, which I thought was interesting. It's the self-titled one, but it's the third one. MGMT did that too. Their third record was a self-titled record as well, and which is just kind of like a little interesting fun fact. 69, very, very, very cool. Recorded very, very well. Check it out. Great folk record. Alright, y'all, that was episode 2 of It Has a Certain Sound. If anybody has any comments, anything that they'd like to say about the way that I'm doing this, please feel free to let me know. Throw that into the comments there. Hey, if you want to subscribe, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. But thanks guys for checking it out. Thanks for listening. This one was a little bit longer than the last one. I've spent a lot of time with this record, so I had more to say about it. All right, y'all. Peace out. Sunday Guy coming at you from Found Sound Records in North Miami. Take it easy. Have a good one.